You think you know all about football? Well, prepare to be amazed, because these 10 things will question everything you've literally been told about football. Now, everyone believes football started in England. Well, as an organized sport, it did. But historically speaking, it didn't. Shocking, right? See, long before 1863, history has it that people have been kicking balls for sport for over 1,000 years. Of course, there were no standard rules at the time, but kicking a ball with the aim of squeezing it through 2 posts was the inspiration behind the modern game we know today. Believe it or not, the oldest form of football can be traced back to 3rd century BC China. During this time, the sport was played by the ancient Chinese military as a way to improve focus and stay fit. This practice was common during the Han Dynasty, and the game itself was called Zi Chu. It involved kicking a ball in between 2 bamboo sticks of about 40 centimeters wide with the net attached at the back. Today, those bamboo sticks and the net have morphed into what is now known as goalposts. To be honest, without this ancient variation of the sport, we might have never had the pleasure of enjoying modern football. But there's a shocking reason football has actually become so popular. You know how baseball is popular in the US but unpopular in Europe, Asia, and Africa? Well, the same is not the case with football, because football is the only sport that is played in every country in the world. No matter where you go, there are people playing the game at different levels. Every country you can think of has a football association and a professional league. But it isn't just the leagues, as you can also find kids playing the sport on the streets, in school, and at home. Of course, standard rules aren't practiced in street soccer, but they apply in all professional leagues across the globe. But there's a thing with the rules that I bet even Ronaldo doesn't know about. We all know FIFA is the #1 body in football, so it's easy to assume they're the ones making all the rules, right? Wrong! Sure enough, FIFA's the big brother of our beloved sport, but they don't make the rules. That job belongs to an organization called the International Football Association Board, or IFAB for short. IFAB was formed in 1886 to formulate all the universally acceptable laws of the game, and till this day, it remains the only body with the power to amend existing rules or develop new ones. This is not to say FIFA doesn't have any say in the lawmaking processes. They do, but that's only because IFAB allows FIFA to have 50% representation in its affairs. Also, amendments to IFAB's football laws require a 3/4 majority vote. And since FIFA only has 50% representation, it means it isn't powerful enough to pass a motion on its own. But let's move away from the politics of the game and go back to the sport itself. Cause I bet you didn't know that the first balls used by the ancient Chinese were made of leather and human hair. Sounds gross, but completely true. The leather formed the outer layer of the ball, while the hair was stuffed inside to make it full and weighty. In cases where there wasn't enough hair available, the Chinese would stuff the leather ball with chicken feathers instead. That's not the case anymore, as modern soccer balls are now made of lighter synthetic leather or a polyvinyl carbonate outer cover, which is sewn around an inner cotton lining. Just so you know, the first oval-shaped ball was invented in 1855 by a man named Charles Goodyear, and they were made with vulcanized rubber, not leather. I'm sure you're familiar with the Goodyear tire brand. Yeah, it's the same guy. Thanks to how light Goodyear's reinvented soccer balls were, the game could be played for longer periods, which was quite difficult at the time hard leather balls were being used. Speaking of football's playing time, have you ever wondered why the game is played for 90 minutes? Well, it all started in a match between London and Sheffield in 1886, where both teams agreed to play for a time duration of 90 minutes. This was the first time in football history when a specific duration was set for a match, professional or friendly match, to last for exactly 90 minutes, with some additional time to make up for stoppages in between normal time. After England, other countries countries that quickly adopted the 90-minute duration included Scotland, Ireland, and Germany. But the Germans wouldn't need to worry about checking the time at the 1950 World Cup due to the dastardly actions of their ruthless leader, Adolf Hitler. Now, I bet you didn't know that Germany was banned from participating in that year's edition of the world's biggest football tournament. Yeah, the Germans were the instigators of World War II, which led to the 1942 and 1946 World Cups being scrapped. After all the fighting had ended, the tournament resumed in 1950, but Germany was exempted from it due to all the hard sanctions they faced after they lost the war. Luckily, they were allowed to participate in the next edition in 1954, and the world could watch Germany play again. But there's no freaking way you knew that BBC is the reason we get to watch football matches live. See, BBC kicked off in 1936, and just a year later, they televised the very first match in football history. The match was a friendly between Arsenal and Arsenal reserves on 16th of September 1937, and it was played at Arsenal's famous Highbury Stadium. A year later, the BBC were also responsible for the first televised international football match between England and Scotland, and the first televised FA Cup final between Preston North End and Huddersfield. Keep in mind that these matches were pre-recorded and not live, but all that would change on the 19th of October 1946, when the BBC took a giant step forward by broadcasting the first live match in football history between Barnet and Wealdstone. Now, aren't we thankful for televised matches? Of course we are, because without it, we would have never gotten to see the likes of Pele in action. Yes, Pele was a phenomenal player, but what if I told you he's the only footballer to win 3 World Cups? Arguably the greatest player in Brazilian football, Pele played in as many as 4 World Cups. These include 1958, 1962, 1966, and 1970. And thanks to his devastating finishing in front of a goal, he was able to fire Brazil to World Cup gold in 1958, 1962, and 1970. Try. Diego Maradona won it once. Lionel Messi won it once. And Cristiano Ronaldo hasn't won it at all. But have you ever wondered how the biggest sporting event in the world even started? The first FIFA World Cup tournament was played in 1930. But did you know that the idea to have an international football tournament, as big as that was, formed out of the neglect of the International Olympic Committee? Yeah, FIFA decided to form its own international football competition after the Americans refused to include football in the 1932 Summer Olympics, which was held in Los Angeles. Years before the Olympics itself, it was announced that soccer wouldn't be included, since it wasn't a popular sport in the US at the time. This was very disappointing for the then FIFA president, Jules Rimet, who, out of disgust at the exclusion of football from the Olympic Games, decided it was time football had its own international tournament. That was a brilliant idea, as the FIFA World Cup has gone on to become the most watched sporting event in the world, packed with the biggest names in football. But no matter how big a footballer is, none of them are big enough to wear the largest jersey in football history. Because the largest football jersey to ever exist is 241 feet 3 inches wide and 294 feet 2 inches long. This is a Guinness World Record for the largest football shirt, which, interestingly, was created by Guinness Nigeria PLC in Lagos, Nigeria, on the 25th of January 2013. And just when we began enjoying football and watching our favorite players live on TV, some guy made it his mission to invade pitches and ruin all the fun. Now things are becoming a whole lot crazier. Just click this link to check out the times when fans went too far.